Hey everybody, I am Kate from CrateInsider.com, and today I'm here with the 2019 604 recommendations from Hendren Racing Engines. And so, in fact, wherever you're seeing this video, there'll be a link and you'll be able to download this for yourself so that way you can print it out and have it in your shop as well. But I'm going to run through some of the items on here, and we're going to start off with ignition timing. And with Hendren Racing Engines, they recommend running 34 degrees of ignition timing set at 4,000 RPM with a locked out distributor. They've seen some engines that like a little bit more than 34 degrees timing, but it's always safe, and they don't recommend going over that unless you're on a dyno and you can really dial that in. Now, with the ignition system, there are a few important points to really keep in mind, and one of them is your mag pickup wires. You want to run your mag pickup wires separately from all of your other wiring, and they suggest running at least 1 inch between your mag pickup wires and any other wires in your system. The reason why is because that the mag pickup only takes milliamps to fire, and any other outside source of amperage can and will induction fire the mag pickup in your distributor. So you really want to make sure the entire length is separate from any other wires. And if you're running an MSD distributor, they recommend changing the cap and rotor at least twice per racing season or every 20 races. So that's just something to keep in mind. When it comes to spark plug wires, they say that these are often overlooked when it comes to getting maximum performance from your ignition system, and they recommend replacing all of your spark plug wires at the beginning of every race season. And then the two best wires that they found, they like running the Moroso Ultra 40s, or we also sell the Fast Fire wire, and this would be the wires that we carry at Crate Insider, so that's recommended right there. Next, for RPM limits, they recommend running a 6800 maximum RPM chip, and regardless of what anybody tells you about running 7,000 RPMs or over, that what they say here is it's just a bunch of BS, and anybody who tells you that they're either their tach's not right, or they'll soon be running over engine parts, or you need to protest them because they are running aftermarket valve springs. And about 95% of all the engine failures that they see are a direct result of excess RPMs. So you definitely want to keep your RPMs in check. And next up, let's talk about engine oil. They recommend a couple of different engine oils, and both of these have proven to produce the most power and have significantly reduced engine wear when compared to other oils. One of these is the Schaefer's 1030. This is a Supreme 7000. It's their racing oil, and every engine that leaves their shop has this oil in it, and it's an excellent oil at an excellent price point. And of course, you can buy that from Crate Insider. We sell it by the quart, we sell it in oil change kits, and we also sell it in cases as well. The other oil that they recommend is the Klotz KE940. Now, this is a 1040, and they found this to be the best oil on the market today, but it is at a higher price point. We also do carry this in stock at Crate Insider. And they recommend changing your oil. This is a question I get a lot, is how often should I change my engine oil? And they recommend changing your oil after every 100 racing laps minimum. And they recommend doing it more often if you're racing in an extremely dusty environment, because remember, fresh oil is the best oil, and fresh oil makes power. Now when we're talking about engine oil, another thing to look at is your engine oil additive. And they recommend going with the Daytona 1 XL1 engine treatment. This is great for use. You don't need it with the Klotz, but you can use it with Schaefer's, or if you're using another oil, you can use the Daytona 1 XL1 engine treatment. The way this works, it binds with the ferrous metals at a molecular level, creates a smoother, slicker surface, and it reduces the friction. And so that also then therefore reduces the heat as well. Next up, let's talk about oil filters. They recommend using the Wix oil filters, which would be the the 51061R oil filter, unless you need a shorter style, and that would be the 51069R. For spark plugs, they recommend using the NGKs, which I'll talk about in a moment. They also have the Autolite AR94s or the AC Delco MR43 LTS. These are the NGK R5724-8s, and we do sell these at Crate Insider. They recommend gapping them at 40,000s when using with MSD or fast type ignition systems, and they recommend changing your spark plugs every 10 races for maximum performance. Next up, talking about carburetors. They recommend using the Willys carburetors, David Smith carburetors, or the ones that they build at Hendren Racing Engines. All three of these are proven to be the most consistent in their testing, and they all have excellent customer service. And then, of course, at Crate Insider, we do offer all three of those brands, or we will have Hendren carbs coming up very soon. For any of these carburetors, they recommend the Willys Super Bowl setup. We do have a separate video about the Willys Super Bowl, and they love this because it takes out the needle in the seat, which are the two things that are biggest failures or biggest problems in carburetors, and it gives you consistent fuel flow all the time. And you can use that on any brand of carburetor that is based on a Holley design. Now, they also recommend using a bypass fuel regulator regardless of what fuel you're using. And note, a conventional bypass is not required if using the Willys Super Bowl, so that is just a slight difference there. And they do strongly recommend, if you own any of these carburetors, do not play around with any of the carb settings without contacting the manufacturer first, with the exception of float levels if you're not using the Super Bowl. And do not allow any other experts or tuners, don't let them mess with your carburetor. A solid 90% of these experts, they say, have no clue what they're doing and will screw things up without exactly knowing where your carburetor is currently calibrated. So call the manufacturer if you have issues, and don't trust Joe Carb Guru, who worked on Quadradrunk once and lives down the road from you. I'm just quoting from the recommendations right here. Now let's talk about headers. This is always fun. So currently the best header for dirt late models that they've tested is the new Profab headers. Now these headers are available in stainless steel or in mild steel, but they do recommend the stainless steel. And in fact, these headers are so good that people are already copying them, and they're even calling them their own design. We've seen that. So their current recommendation is the Profab header along with their anti-reversion muffler. This is the Hendren's anti-reversion muffler, which is a 3-inch inlet and a 3.5-inch outlet. That's their muffler design, and Profab will soon be making these in a stainless version. So right now you'll have the steel anti-reversion mufflers with the stainless steel headers. At some point, Profab will be making a version, working with Hendren Racing Engines to develop that. But until then, we'll be using this design. And if the Profab headers, they are a little bit higher price point. So if those aren't in your budget, then they recommend the Dynatech stainless steel headers because they no longer make the mild steel headers. And then you can use them with the Hendren anti-reversion mufflers, either the 3-inch inlet with a 3-inch outlet. These are the other option is to go with BA headers. They found that the BAs and the Dynatechs are virtually identical in their testing, and both with Dynatechs are just stainless steel now, and with BAs you can get them in mild steel or stainless steel. And also with BAs, they are currently the only manufacturer who are producing the inside the frame rail design for the passenger side of most dirt late models. And so it's really a must-have for you. Then that'll be the brand that you're going to want if you want the inside the frame rail. Now I'm going to go ahead and off script a little bit. I know that there are a lot of my modified customers that watch this as well, and when it comes to headers, then I would definitely strongly recommend going with the BA headers. The fit's fantastic and the performance is excellent. All right, so next up, let's talk about carburetor spacers. If you can run it, because I know a lot of this is rules based, that the carb spacer recommended by Hendren Racing Engines is the one developed by High Velocity Heads, and this is their 604 5/8-inch spacer. Now, Hendren is currently working with HVH to come up with a new spacer design sometime in spring or summer of 2019, but for now, this would be the best spacer that we'll recommend for a 604. All right, next up, water pump pulleys and fan blades. They recommend using any of the Jones Racing products or the KRC front drive kits with their recommended water pumps as well. And they've found that these are the best, most affordable, and lightest weight that they found. And then for fans, we sell a lot of fans here at Crate Insider, and they recommend running the smallest engine fan that you can get away with using. And they currently really, really love the race fan. And with the race fan, we do have interchangeable blades. So that means that, and I don't have the bolts in here on purpose, so you can see that you could take this fan and you can change it from a 3-blade to a 2-blade, or make it even to a 4-blade. You really won't need a 6-blade. It will it's capable of being 6 blades, but you really don't need that in a crate engine. The other option that they like is going with the Jones fans, and this is a 3-blade fan, and they come in different diameters. They come in a 15, 17, 18, or a 19. So those are the Jones Hustler fans. Next up, let's talk about the air filter and air filter base. So with what they recommend for an air filter is to go with a Walker. The most popular is to go with the 4-inch Walker air filter. It is an oiled air filter, and the 4 inches really refers to the element inside of this air filter. And for a base, they recommend going with the Crate Insider flat air filter base. Along with your air filter and air filter base, Hendren also recommends going with a cold air box. Now, of course, you can construct one on your own, but if you either don't care to fabricate or you just want the easier way, is we do sell the cold air box from Dominator, and this has been very popular and very effective as well. Now, when it comes to valve springs, now the 604s, of course, the newer 604s have the beehive valve springs, and that was a real game changer with the 604s. And while they are a lot better than the previous version of that, Hendren still advises that you check these springs after every race just to be on the safe side. To date, they've seen just a few broken beehive springs, but they have seen that springs are better, they last longer than the old style, and they don't have any recommended replacement time per se. You just want to make sure that you check them on a regular basis. Now, when you're checking those, any of the on-the-car testers, like for instance, we have the LSM valve spring pressure tester, with any of those, there's enough, it really depends on the person who's pulling that spring changer. So you really want to make sure it's the same person who is checking week after week. So regardless of what people might tell you, the new beehive valve spring is not equal new RPM or more RPM. And so you still don't want to go over that 6,800 RPM that we talked about in the very, very beginning. Now, when the valve adjustment, they say now if you're having Hendren do your engine, when they get the engine from them, the valves will be set and don't need to be readjusted. But when you go to change valve springs, you want to keep everything in order, and then you can put it all together without having to adjust valves. But I will say we do have a couple of videos for Crate Insider. We have how to change valve springs and how to adjust a valve lash. And then there's a whole section here to talk about that, but you can also check out the videos. And then for fuel, let's talk about fuel for a moment. And they will tell you if you can run methanol, you can just run methanol, and you don't actually listen to anything else I have to say about fuel. If that is not possible, then the other options for you next up would be oxygenated race gas. And the one they recommend the most is the Klotz, the CR604 or the CR601. And we're really kind of making a switch to the CR601. The CR604 has gotten a little bit higher priced. With the 601, it is an unleaded fuel. And let's see, and it happens to be one of the most stable oxygenated fuels that are out there, and doesn't contain any of the banned chemicals that the Durnslane Racing Series, bans. So of course I sell that. The other options would be to go with the VP Crate Horsepower, also known as CHP, or the Renegade Ratman 108 Elite, and both of those are great choices when they're legal to use. For a race gas, the non-oxygenated, they want to go with a regular race gas at any gas or any race gas that is between 95 to 105 octane. With the Rush Racing Series, they recommend using the 110 spec fuel, especially in the summer when detonation can be an issue. And then when we get a lot of questions about E85, and what they have to say about that is the only time they recommend E85, and I'm just going to read this. The only time we recommend E85 is if your rules do not allow for oxygenated race gas, but the rule makers who wrote the rules are stupid and allow E85 to run against non-oxygenated race gas. Just dropping the mic there. All right, next up. So a couple more recommendations. They highly recommend that you install a simple on-off valve in line from your fuel cell to your engine. They've seen several engine failures due to the fuel cell siphoning into the engine, either filling the oil pan with fuel and causing bearing failure, or filling cylinders with fuel and causing engines to hydraulic, and we definitely don't want that. All right, now thermostats, that's another question we get a lot. They do not recommend using a thermostat in the cooling system. They've seen far too many engine killing issues with the thermostats, and that includes ones that are meant for racing. So, and if you have issues getting your engine warm enough under racing conditions, they might recommend switching to a smaller fan blade or to block off part of your radiator. And then we've got some in this recommendations. They talk a little bit about initial startup. Another little side note here is engine oil coolers. They do not recommend using engine oil coolers. The deck-mounted oil coolers do virtually nothing, no airflow. And with the modern racing oils that they recommend, oil coolers are not required on dirt late models. So that is what we have. There's a few more notes in here that you can certainly benefit from. You can download this at the link wherever you're seeing this. And all of these products that you've seen on the table here, they're all available at CrateInsider.com. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in another video.
If you like what we're doing here, hit that subscribe button.